Hello everyone, back with another video. Today we're going to talk about essentially you're going to get deeper into the construction of tests, specifically in the coding aspect, how the code is written, the syntax, and things of that nature. Once we talk about that some more, I'll make another video about the HTML tags and how to acquire those. The videos will be kind of interchangeable in order, but I'm just making this one first. So let's look at this test here, the test we were looking at last time. The verified global sanctuary test, right? So we're looking at this test, and we've already talked about the construction of the test. Essentially, we need the using statements, the namespace or the name of the project that we're working in, the test class, the class for the test itself, the test class statement, the class for the test, the entire test itself. That's why you can see with the brackets. These brackets encompass the entire test. This bracket encompasses everything in this file that we be part of the Selenium automation project, right? So you can't really create two namespaces, but essentially, if there were a way to create another one, then I guess part of the file would be stored in another project. But that's besides the point. The brackets just are their syntax, which means they're required for the code to be read correctly. They basically group classes and methods into together into one group. So this bracket right here connects with a bracket down here at the bottom. You can't really see it highlighted, but it's one of these brackets here at the bottom, probably this one, right? And it just signifies that this is the test class right here. The bigger bracket is for the namespace, like I said. Within the first method, the first part of the method has the table of contents, like I said, that just lists each method that will be a part of the test. The first method is log into Marshall. The second method is verify test object. The third method is log out of Marshall, right? So once we get, this is just a table of contents. Once we get into the actual test, we have the three methods I just talked about. Log into Marshall, verify test object, and log out of Marshall, which we all talked about in the last video, but I just want to do a quick refresher, just in case. But so now that we have, say we have the table of contents, what's the format that I need to write the test in? How do I get the test to do exactly what I want, right? So essentially, first you want to construct or come up with the names of each of the steps, right? And the way you want each word to be capitalized, connected with an underscore, kind of just following the same format you kind of have here. You have to make sure you have the brackets, I think. Yeah, brackets here. It's just signifying that this is actually a method. It's not just some random code. It signifies that this is a method, and you can see this kind of got highlighted right here. It signifies that this method gets expanded here. This method gets expanded or / defined down here, and then the next one will be defined at the bottom. The semicolon just means that you're ending the statement. So the first statement is, this is a method called log into Marshall. And that's the end of that's the colon right there, just signifying the end of the statement. The next one says verify test object with the colon at the end, which verifies that the next statement. And log out of Marshall follows the same principles. Now we get into the first method, log into Marshall, right? And we have the brackets here, or braces, I think. Yeah, these are called braces. Braces here to signify this is all contained as a method. And then we have in here we have some code. So let's analyze the code. Let's look at it and see what's actually going on here. So this Selenium essentially, right, uses the drivers, which are the Chrome driver, Firefox driver, which we talked about in previous videos, to run the tests, right? So this first part here is basically getting whichever driver you're using, and you're about to give it a command. That's essentially what's happening here. So you're saying driver dot the dot just signifies that that whatever comes next is a sub command behind the first command. So driver dot navigate. So navigate is a part of is a command that you can give to the driver. So it's like driver navigate, and since navigate is actually a method, you need the two brackets here. So driver navigate dot go to URL, and then inside brackets has base URL. Let me explain that really quickly. So in the same way that navigate is a method that is a part of driver, go to URL is a method that is part of navigate, or part of the method navigate, which is why you could technically infinitely branch off into different methods as long as the method that you're branching into has more methods inside of it. These are all like classes and class conditions, something I talked about in the last video, how a class can have a bunch of functions and variables inside. So as long as you could call a variable function from within that class or method in this case, then you can call more complex and deeper commands. So you're basically saying driver, use your navigate function, then within the navigate function, use the go to URL function and open base URL. So since this base URL is inside the brackets, this is usually like text or something something you kind of want it to specifically do. Now base URL, you can see it's a string, which means that it's a variable that has been assigned a value that's equal to letters. So the base URL is something that's part of the UI automation test base file, and it connects actually to the app config file, which we talked about in an earlier video, which is where you would specify the base URL. Since this is a string, so you're basically saying driver go navigate, go to base URL. This is a string, and the string will be whatever the URL for the application you're trying to get to. So in this case, it says dev.churchmarshall.com because we're testing the Church Marshall application. You know, we're being sponsored by First Leader Soft, so they've allowed us to test the application for the purpose of this video series. Very grateful to them. But just getting back into the video, we have so that's pretty straightforward. And since this is an entire statement, it ends with a semicolon, the same as with the other statements we have up here. The next line here is not easy. It's easier to understand once you get a hang of it, but a little bit more complicated to explain. Okay, so since I had the using statement up here, allowing me to use anything from UI automation helper, right? The file in the helper methods project, I type UI automation helper methods, which is a class or a method that's part of the UI automation helper helper file, right? So I can call any method or any function from the helper methods file using this statement. So it's like UI automation helper methods, this file, do this command. So dot would be a function that, like we said earlier, is a function that is part of this class or file, in this case, login. So that basically means I've written a login command. I've written a login function, method, or class in the UI automation helper methods file, and I wanted to execute it at this time, right? And the method, right, actually has a return value in the helper methods file. So I wanted to use the driver to run run this function, because the function includes clicking and things like that, which the driver runs. So instead of using a string here, it uses a field. I said field. Instead, it uses the driver object. See, the driver that will be given to test cases. The driver will be set up in a method that will be called by all tests. Hence, each test case gets a new driver reference. It's pretty straightforward, but also ends with a semicolon. There's not much more to explain there. It's just this file, the automation helper methods file, or the class within that. Okay, you can actually see the description here. So it says the class is called UI automation helper. Within that class, there's a method called UI automation helper methods. This helper class will consolidate all the global methods we use to drive our test cases. So within that, is a method called the login method, which is what we're using now to drive this part of the test. Since the login method encompasses all the aspects of logging in, including typing the username, typing the password, and submitting, which we'll get into probably in the next video, part 2 of this video. I think we've talked a bit much, and I think it's best to separate this into 2 parts. But then in the next video, we'll discuss the login method specifically, how it's constructed, and things like that. But it basically calls this login method here and tells it to run, and then it closes it. So this essentially on its own is the login test. But I would also have to include the UI automation helper methods.logout, and then that would be the entire login test that we talked about in the last video. What we see here, the driver.find element, is something I'll just talk about in the next video. But for now, I just want us to understand kind of how the code gets written. The first part, or the first statement, will always be some kind of a class or object that you're trying to give a command to, unless you're assigning a variable. So it's like, this driver is an object that I'm trying to tell to navigate to go to this URL called base URL. This UI automation helper methods is a method that I'm telling to log in using the driver. It's pretty straightforward. This video is a bit more technical, maybe a bit more complex. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below. Just ask any questions. I think that's going to be it for this video. In the next video, we'll talk more about the actual construction of the how Selenium interacts with the browser, things like that in the code, in specific to the writing of code. I think that's all. Thanks for watching. As always, feel free to, like I said, leave any comment or anything. We'll be back in the next video. Have a great one, guys.